Episode 1. Live Free or Die. The final season of this epic show begins with a flash forward of Walter eating breakfast at a restaurant on his 52nd birthday under a different identity, and he looks completely different. After eating, he goes out to his car where he has an M60 machine gun in the trunk. In present day, Walter makes sure to destroy any evidence that ties Gus's killing and Brock's poisoning to himself. When Walter gets home, Skylar tells him she is afraid of him and doesn't feel safe having their kids around him and asks him to leave. Walter then realizes he needs to destroy the footage of the security cameras of the super lab, so he uses a gigantic magnet to destroy everything in the police evidence room, including Gus's laptop. Ted is in the hospital after his accident in Season 4, and Skylar shows up hoping he won't talk to the police, and Ted tells Skylar he will keep quiet. Walter goes to visit Saul, and Saul learns that Walter was the one to poison Brock, not Gus, and Saul wants to end their partnership, but Walter says it ends when he wants it to end, and that is not yet, intimidating him to continue being his lawyer. Episode 2. Madrigal. The DEA and Hank learn of Gus's death, and Hank knows there is something fishy going on here because he died at a nursing home, which is the weirdest place for a drug kingpin to die of all places. Walter and Jesse realize that they have no revenue coming in since Gus's distribution chain went down, so they go to Mike and see if he can help them start up again and find someone to sell in bulk to. Mike wants nothing to do with Walter because he is a ticking time bomb, and everyone that does business with him ends up dead. A few days later, though, Mike discovers that the account he put all of his money into for his granddaughter's savings has been frozen by the DA, so he has no money coming in either. He then rethinks Walt's offer. Jesse still thinks Walter might have something to do with Brock's poisoning when he learns that Gus didn't give Brock the ricin, so Walter plants the small vial of ricin behind an electrical outlet in his house, and he plants a fake one in Jesse's Roomba, and when Jesse finds it, he finally believes Walter has been innocent and he apologizes to him for suspecting him. Madrigal executive Lydia hires a bunch of hitmen to kill off anyone in Gus's organization that could potentially identify her to the police. Mike learns of this and thwarts her plan from going forward, and he actually asks her if she can supply methylamine to Walt, and they can continue business. Episode 3. Hazard Pay. Walter moves back into the house, much to Skylar's dismay, but she can't stop him since it is his name on the deed. Walter, Mike, and Jesse meet with Saul a few days later in hopes of finding a new place to cook, and Saul suggests that they use a pest removal business as a cover and then cook in houses that have been covered for bug removal. Saul thinks they should call themselves Vaminos Pests, and when they are treating a house, just cook inside of it, while also cleaning the house of any pests, and no one would ever know. Walter convinces Jesse to end his relationship with Andrea because she doesn't need the pain that being with Jesse brings. At their car wash, Skylar completely melts down with all her stress and Marie asks what is wrong, but Skylar doesn't want to tell Marie because Hank would find out. Marie goes to Walter and asks what is going on with her sister, and Walter says Skylar is just dealing with the stress after she was caught cheating on him with Ted. After their first cook and they sell the batch, Walter is upset that the take isn't as high as normal, and it is because Mike has to pay his old guys that had all of their assets seized after Gus was found dead. Walter doesn't like that they are paying people he doesn't know, and he tells Jesse they need to get rid of these other men. Episode 4. 51. Lydia and Jesse start business together, but they are shocked when they find a tracking device on a barrel of methylamine of theirs, and Mike doesn't believe it was planted by the DEA. He believes Lydia put it there in hopes of getting out of their deal because she believes it is too dangerous with the DEA sniffing around. Lydia denies this, though. Hank is promoted at the office to ASAC, which is an upper-tier special agent for the DEA. At the White residence, Skylar is still not doing too well, and when people are over for Walt's birthday party, she oddly walks into the pool fully clothed looking like she is trying to drown herself, but Walter pulls her out. Walter then learns that Skylar asked Hank and Marie to look after their kids until Skylar is out of this funk she is in. When Walter tries talking to her about it, she threatens to harm herself if he tries bringing the kids back home. She wants them safe, and safe doesn't belong in the same sentence as Walter right now. Skylar tells Walt her only home for their family to be safe is if Walter's cancer comes back. Episode 5. Dead Freight. Walter bugs Hank office, and they do actually learn that the DEA planted the tracker on the barrel of methylamine. Walter tells Lydia that all the barrels in her warehouse have been compromised and Walter needs a new way to obtain the chemicals if they want to continue cooking. Lydia comes up with the idea to rob a train that is carrying a whole bunch of it. They plan the heist, and they bring in a man named Todd to help with the mission. Jesse tells Todd that no one else can find out what they are doing because that is how they will get caught. Meanwhile, Skylar and Walter sit down and they come to an agreement that she will continue to launder his money, but the children have to stay away from him for their own safety. The following day, the train heist comes and it works and they manage to get the methylamine, but after they are done, a young boy sees them on his dirt bike and without even thinking, Todd kills him, so there is no witnesses and Jesse breaks down. Episode 6. Buyout. Following the disaster of the train heist, Mike and Jesse both decide to quit and they want no part of this business anymore. Since it was Mike who put the deal together, Mike wants to sell the methylamine to another dealer named Declan, but Walt isn't going for it, and he believes it belongs to all three of them. Walter invites Jesse over to his house, and he tells Jesse about his plan to build an empire, and he needs Jesse by his side to do it, but Jesse doesn't know what to do. He actually stays and has dinner with Walter and Skylar, and it is super awkward to say the least. After dinner, Walter tells Jesse that all he has left is their business, and he wants to go out on his own terms, and Jesse says he will think about it. The following day, Mike wants to do the deal with Declan, but Walter hid the barrel of chemicals from Mike, and Mike threatens Walter to give it up, but Walter says they can find a better deal that can let him keep his business running too. Episode 7. Say My Name. They all go meet with Declan, and Walter tries to negotiate a deal with him. Walter offers to cook the meth and Declan can be the one that distributes it, and they both win with this deal. Declan agrees, but since Jesse wanted out, Todd will be Walt's new assistant while cooking. When Jesse goes to Walter to get his share of the deal, Walter doesn't want to pay him because he really wants Jesse to work with him instead of Todd, but Jesse is adamant he's done. Walter gives in and pays Jesse the money he is owed. When Mike goes to Walter to get his share of the deal, Mike tells Walter that he ruined everything and they could have it so well if he just shut up and cooked the meth like Gus asked him to do, but Walter's ego got in the way and ruined everything that they built. Walter gets so angry with Mike that he shoots and kills him. Episode 8. Gliding Overall. Part 1 Finale. Walter meets with Lydia and wants to know all of the names Mike was still paying so he can have them all killed in prison, that way they never can talk to the feds. Walter takes the names to Todd's uncle, Jack Welker, who has ties to a lot of the prisons in the area, and Walter pays Jack to have them taken out. The plan is successful and all 9 inmates are soon taken out in mysterious ways in prison. Their meth production runs successfully for 9 months, and their business is going smoothly with no hiccups for the first time in a long time. Skylar tells Walter they have more money than they will ever spend, and she begs him to get out of the drug business, and he surprisingly agrees with her so the kids can come back home. Walter visits Jesse to see how he's doing, and the two reminisce about their time back in the day cooking meth in the RV and how far they've come since then, and now have the money they used to crave. About a week later, they are having a cookout at the White House, and Hank has to use the restroom. And when he is sitting on the toilet, he looks at a book that Gail gave Walter, and he reads the dedication from Gail to Walter, and he realizes Walter is Heisenberg, as part 1 of Season 5 concludes. Episode 9. Blood Money. Hank is completely shocked at the information he just learned, and he tells Marie he needs to leave to take care of something. Hank goes to the office, and he gets all of the documentation and evidence they had on Gustavo Fring, and he matches the handwriting in the notebook they had for Gail, and it is a direct match confirming Walter was working with Gail in close proximity. Walter had retired from the drug business after Skylar begged him to, but one day, Lydia goes to his house and begs him to come back and cook because the quality of the product has dropped off tremendously and her buyers are not happy. Skylar orders her to leave and to never come back. Walter also finds out his cancer has returned, but he sees how happy his family has been recently ever since he retired, so he decides against telling them the truth. Walter notices the book that Gail gave him in the bathroom is gone, and he finds a tracker on his vehicle, and Walter starts to think Hank has uncovered his true identity. With this news, Walter goes to talk to Hank, and Hank punches him and accuses him of being Heisenberg, and Walter warns Hank to tread lightly. Episode 10. Buried. Hank goes to Skylar, and he wants to tell her that Walter is a drug cook, and he can tell Skylar already knew. Hank believes Skylar was a victim, and she was coerced by Walter, and wants to get her statement to build a case against Walter, but Skylar says she has nothing to say. When Hank has Marie try to talk some sense into Skylar, Skylar apologizes, but says she isn't going to say anything about Walter on the record. Marie slaps her and says Hank is going to take Walter down with or without Skylar's help, but she should want to be on their side when it's all said and done. Walter buries all of his money out in the desert where no one will know where it is besides himself. Walter tells Skylar he is thinking about turning himself in, but he wants Skylar to guarantee she will use the desert money to raise their kids and put them through college. Skylar doesn't want him to turn himself in, as Hank has no concrete evidence. Meanwhile, Jack gets into a dispute with Declan and his gang over some drug business, and Jack's people kill all of Declan's people. Jack then takes all of Declan's meth equipment. Back to Hank, who arrives at the DEA office and is shocked to see Jesse there being questioned. Episode 11. Confessions. Hank tells Jesse he knows the truth about Walter, and he will cut Jesse a deal if he testifies against Walter, but when Saul shows up, Jesse leaves without saying anything. Walter and Skylar arrange a meeting with Hank and Marie, and Walter tells them that the investigation would ruin their entire family and how he's out of the drug business now, so no harm in going after him. Hank doesn't care and he wants to bring Walter down, and before Walter leaves, he hands Hank a DVD that implicates Hank knew about Walter being Heisenberg the entire time, and Hank will go down with Walter if it happens. He is also shocked to learn that his physical therapy was paid for with drug money, so it doesn't look too good for him. Later that day, Walter meets with Jesse, and he knows the DEA is trying to crack Jesse, so Walter gives him a ton of money to leave and start fresh somewhere else. Jesse is going to do it until he learns from Saul that Walter was the one that actually poisoned Brock with the Lily of the Valley flower in the last season. It wasn't ricin. Jesse gets into a fit of rage and douses the White's house in gasoline as the episode ends. Episode 12. Rabid Dog. Walter returns home to find his house completely covered in gasoline and no sign of Jesse, so he gives him a call in hopes of calming him down, but he just has to leave a voicemail. Skylar learns what Jesse did, and she orders Walter to have him taken care of as she believes he is a threat to their family now. A little later, we see the reason it wasn't burned down was because Hank saw Jesse and convinced him against doing it, and he told Jesse if he really wants to see Walter suffer, he needs to work with the DEA to bring Walter down. Jesse agrees, and at the office, they videotape Jesse telling the whole story how he and Walter first started cooking meth all those years ago. But since there is no physical evidence Walter is Heisenberg, Hank says he needs Jesse to wear a wire and go get a verbal confession. When it is about to happen, Jesse backs out and can't do it, but he does call Walter and says he's still going to get him where it really hurts. Hank is pissed at Jesse for not getting the confession, but Jesse says he has a better plan. The episode ends with Walter calling Todd and saying he wants to pay Jack for another hit. Episode 13. Tahajili. Walter asks Todd and Jack to kill Jesse, and Jack says he will do it if Walter cooks one more batch of meth, so Todd can really get the recipe down, and he will continue Walter's legacy with the Blue Sky meth. Walter agrees to do it. Meanwhile, Hank is still investigating hard, and he's trying to track down Walter's money because if he finds that, he finds the smoking gun that he needs. Back to Walter, who is trying to lure Jesse to come to him, so the hit can be successful, and he has Andrea call Jesse, but Hank intercepts the phone call without Walter knowing. Andrea tells Jesse Walter has the money buried somewhere, and if he comes to him, he will get half. So now Hank knows about the money being buried, just has to find it. Hank stages a photo to make it look like Jesse found the money and sends it to Walter, which causes Walter to freak out. Walter drives out into the desert to see if it is still there, and Hank and Gomez follow him. Walter also calls Jack and his crew to come to the location because they are supposed to kill Jesse, and he believes he's there. Walter arrives first, and he is shocked to see Jesse with Gomez and Hank, and he realizes he was bamboozled. Walter tries to call off Jack and his men because they will shoot at first sight of any cops. It doesn't work, and when Jack's gang shows up, a shootout ensues. Episode 14. Ozymandias. Following the shootout, Gomez is dead, and Hank has been shot in the thigh. Walter begs Jack not to kill Hank, and that is his brother-in-law, and Walter even offers Jack all $80 million of his money if he will let Hank survive. Hank tells Walter he's being naive and Jack would never let him walk, and he turns out to be correct when Jack shoots Hank dead and Walter is heartbroken. Jack and his men also take 6 of the 7 barrels of Walt's money, leaving him with a little, but definitely not $80 million. Todd then suggests they take Jesse hostage, and they can use him in their organization and force him to show Todd how to cook the meth, like their own little slave, and Jack does it. Meanwhile, back in Albuquerque, Marie and Skylar are patiently waiting for their husbands to come home, but only Walter comes back and starts packing up all of his things. Skylar realizes that Hank is dead, and she threatens Walter with a knife, demanding he leave the house at once. They get into a little scuffle, and then Walt Jr. calls the police on his father, forcing Walter to leave, but not before he grabs Holly to take with him. After a few hours with the police looking for him, Walter decides it is best if he leaves Holly with her mother, so he leaves her at a fire station. He then calls Saul and wants to use Saul's guy that can get him a brand new identity to leave and never return. Episode 15. Granite State. With the help of Saul's plug, Ed, Walter gets a new identity and moves to a little cabin in New Hampshire while Saul starts his new life in Omaha, Nebraska, as he knows the feds are after him too, since the world now knows he was laundering Walter's money and they're both wanted fugitives. Skylar is interrogated by the DEA, and after she tells them everything she knows, Todd finds her and threatens her not to say a word about Lydia or else he will kill her family. Lydia is still supplying methylamine to Todd and Jack's gang now, where they have Jesse held hostage, forcing him to be their cook. One night, Jesse tries to escape his hell, but is caught, and for his punishment, Todd kills Andrea right in front of him. A few months pass by and Walter is still living secluded in his cabin, and he decides to take a stroll down in town, and he calls Walt Jr. to hear his son's voice, and Jr. doesn't want anything to do with him and tells him to die already. Walter then calls the DEA to turn himself in. While he's chilling at a bar waiting for the authorities, he sees Elliot and Gretchen on the TV talking about their relationship with Walter in the past, and this gives him an idea. When the police arrive at the bar he was at, he snuck out before he could be caught. Episode 16. Felina. Series finale. Walter makes his way to Gretchen and Elliot's house and gives them his last $10 million that he wants them to give Walt Jr. when he turns 18 and say it is a gift for graduating from them. The feds will never suspect they're working with Walter, and Walter says if they don't do it, he will have his hitmen kill them. They agree to do the deal. The following day, he crashes a meeting between Todd and Lydia and spikes Lydia's coffee with ricin when she isn't paying attention. Walter is going out on boss mode. Walter then goes to the house that Skylar and Jr. are staying at, and he gives the coordinates of Hank's burial site to Skylar so they can have a proper funeral. He also admits that while he did everything for their family, he also loved the power that came with it, and he felt important for once in his life. Walter then goes to Jack's hideout where Jesse is being held captive, and Walter goes to talk to them and Jesse to catch up. When inside the living room, Walter tackles Jesse to the ground, and then he has an M60 machine gun set up in his trunk that starts automatically spraying bullets all over the house, killing anyone that was standing up. Todd is the last surviving member, but Jesse is able to strangle him and kill him. Jesse gets a gun and points it at Walter, and Walter begs him to do it. But Jesse still can't manage to kill his partner, and he gets in Todd's car and drives away. Walter then goes down into the meth lab and patiently awaits the police that he alerted just a little bit ago. Walter then collapses and dies right before the police find his body in his second home, a meth lab. And that is it for Breaking Bad. Such an awesome series, and if you haven't checked out the prequel Better Call Saul series, I will link it in the description below. Thanks for watching.